Well, it looks like the writer of Ant-Man 3 / Kang Dynasty is throwing a temper tantrum after being upsetted by fans of MODOK or fans of Marvel. It says right here in the title from the direct, Ant-Man Quantumania writer refuses to listen to fans criticizing MODOK. They're wrong, quote unquote. Now, this is not a clickbait article. He literally says those things. And I think it stems back to the initial reviews that came out for Ant-Man 3. As you can see, the writer for Ant-Man 3 right here, Jeff Loveness, had something to say when people started criticizing his film. He said, "To be honest, those reviews took me by surprise. I was in a pretty low spot. Those were not good reviews, and I was like, what the?" Well, that's actually understandable. It's understandable to look at all of the work that you put into a movie like Ant-Man, and it's supposed to be a huge blockbuster, and people dislike it, and you're getting all sorts of negative reviews. I would be upset too. But he says, "I'm really proud of what I wrote for Jonathan Majors, who plays the villain Kang the Conqueror, and Michelle Pfeiffer. I thought that was good stuff, you know? And so I was just despondent, and I was really sad about it." Clearly, this writer relies on what audiences think about his movies to determine whether his script is good or not. And I will reinforce this idea as we go into the second article here, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into how this guy reacts to the things that happen. Because it's a really interesting contrast between Jeff Loveness, who is writing an Avengers film, by the way, okay? An Avengers film. Now, if you know anything about Avengers films are gigantic. They're the biggest blockbusters to come out that year, and they need to be good, especially if you want them to be successful, like the first Avengers film. Because you had Joss Whedon direct the first Avengers film, and then you had the Russo brothers, who directed Winter Soldier, and then Infinity War, which is an Avengers film. I mean, they also did Captain America 3 right after Winter Soldier because everybody loved the Russo brothers so much. But then they came out and they made 2 gigantic Avengers films that were extremely successful across the board and written very well. But it says right here in this article, the writer for Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, has revealed that he refuses to listen to fans regarding their criticism of MODOK. While fans knew the floating head was going to feature in the new released film, it seems many were still not prepared for him. For his MCU adaptation, the character was retconned into being Corey Stoll's Darren Cross, having survived his catastrophic defeat in 2015's original Ant-Man film. As it turns out, he survived his journey into the quantum realm and was saved, butt and all, by Jonathan Majors' Kang the Conqueror. Many fans have been vocal in their displeasure regarding his adaptation, both in how his story was handled and the VFX that went into building his look on screen. I mean, if you haven't seen pictures of MODOK yet, just take a look right here. I mean, this basically sums up who he is as a character and what he looks like in the movie and how other fans might react to him. You probably reacted and going, what is that thing? Kill it with fire. Well, lots of other people thought the same thing. In an interview with Vital Thrills, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania writer Jeff Loveness shared his feelings on MODOK while standing firm on the MCU's adaptation of the villain. Check this out, guys. This is insane. When asked if a variant of Corey Stoll's villain might show up as an Avenger, blah, 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 he says, if I say yes, I promise you he will be even stupider. I refuse to listen to the fans on this. I will not make MODOK serious. Why? Why not? Isn't that what the fans want? And he says, as long as I am alive, they're not going to get that serious adaptation that those 4 fans want. He'll be a big dumb head. That's all. This is really insane. What a crazy thing to say. Because, for one thing, you're refusing to listen to the fans on this. Fans of what? Fans of Marvel? Fans of MODOK? The people you're trying to cater to? The people whose expectations and hopes you're trying to fully realize through film? You're not going to listen to them. The people who basically paid you guys' way to success. Okay. And then he says, as long as I am alive, they're not going to get that serious adaptation. He's not going to allow it, no matter how many fans come out and say, we want a serious take on MODOK. We just want a serious Marvel villain. He says no. Why? Speaking with Slash Film, the writer revealed that it wasn't actually his idea to turn Darren Cross into MODOK, but he was also really on board. And just so you guys know, check out this quote. "Oh, right, I don't know anything about that. I never read anything like that. I don't know. It could maybe, but it was never in my time over there." I'm not even sure what he's saying here. "I believe it was Peyton Reed's idea to make Darren Cross into MODOK, but I immediately jumped on that and pitched real hard on it." Wow, sounds like Jeff Loveness is the perfect perfect yes man for directors like Peyton Reed. By the way, Peyton Reed also seems like a yes man. I mean, his films have basically been transitions into bigger films the whole time. Ant-Man 1 was, for me, it was okay, but it was kind of a transition to better things, a stepping stone. And so was the second film. The second film was, didn't really have much going on. I felt like you could just watch it and just not even remember it and then be fine for the rest of the story going forward. And the third film feels that exact way. I find it interesting that Jeff Loveness says straight away that he's just completely on board. I think that, again, I really want to stress the differences between Jeff Loveness here and Joss Whedon and the Russo brothers. You know, back in the day when Avengers 1 was coming out, I read a story. I'm not sure if it's completely 100% confirmed, but I had read that Joss Whedon had gotten a script from Zach Penn because Zach Penn was hired to write the Avengers film. And he brought his own rendition of the script in for Joss Whedon and the execs at Marvel to read. And Joss Whedon looked at it, he read it, and he's like, "You have nothing. You have absolutely nothing." And Joss Whedon took the script, and I think I remember this correctly. If not, it's okay if you correct me. Pretty sure he ripped it up. He went home, and he rewrote the entire script himself. And Zach Penn was, he's like, it kind of sucked that he did that, but, it is his movie, and he's going to do what he wants. And they had that mutual understanding. And it turned, like, Avengers 1 ended up being one of the probably the most successful film that Marvel ever created. It's a groundbreaking film. I mean, there were big shoes to fill. A lot of people had so many different expectations, and they landed those expectations with flying colors because Avengers 1 was extremely successful. And then you have the Russo brothers who wrote, I think they wrote and directed. They had Christopher Marcus and his partner, I can't remember right off the bat. I really love those writers, though. Don't get me wrong. But they wrote and directed Winter Soldier. And Winter Soldier is probably Marvel's best film ever. I think that's my opinion. If everyone disagrees, whatever. I thought Winter Soldier was incredible. And then they went on to do Captain America 3 and Infinity War, as I mentioned before, and Endgame. And they knocked it out of the park every single time. But then you've got Jeff Loveness here, who wrote a crappy Ant-Man film. It's the worst of the three, hands down. I know that bigger is not always better, so creating gigantic CGI worlds for people like Ant-Man to travel around in is not always fun. You have to get it right. But this guy he directed he wrote Ant-Man 3. It turns out to be a disaster. So what does he do? He complains about it. Says, "I was really sad." It's really interesting because when he goes on in this interview, he says things like, "Let me just say, the people who are divided, they're wrong. I will go to the mat for MODOK. I am so happy, and it was such a fight." Wow. "And it was such a labor of love and passion and all that, just to get the comedy balance of this guy." Yeah. MODOK, the perfectly balanced comedic villain. Did any of you who had seen Ant-Man 3 in theaters think that when you were watching MODOK? Did you think, wow, this guy, he's got this perfect balance of comedy, stupidity, and also evil because he's a villain and stuff? I mean, it's just, they nailed this guy. They nailed it. No. No, they didn't nail this character. They nailed him to a cross and crucified him. That's what they did. They crucified his entire character. And he says, just to get the comedy balance of this guy, and hey, I'm a big comics guy, he says. I'm sure you are too. That's what he says. He says, I'm sure you are too. We're on the internet. People got opinions. Those mother effers are wrong. Wow. I mean, he's definitely passionate. He's passionate against fans. He says, I'm sorry, you want to do a serious take on Modoc? I played that Avengers game on PS5. Good luck. Yeah, come back later. So not only is he saying that he refuses to listen to the fans on the matter, he is also saying that not only will he continue to write Modoc poorly if Modoc is in future films, he will make him even less intelligent in future iterations. As long as he is alive, he said it himself, as long as I am on this earth, living and breathing, you fans, you Marvel fans, will never see the Modoc that you wanted. You will never have your requests fulfilled. Now, keep in mind, once again, Jeff Loveness is the writer of Avengers Kang Dynasty. And from what I heard and understand, there are going to be some character deaths in that movie. Do you trust Jeff Loveness to fulfill fan dreams and expectations with this film? I certainly don't. Look at the horrible things he's saying. To truly drive this point home, he made it very clear that he's very happy with what they did with Modoc. I think they're referring to. I'll take all the punches that they want, critiques, whatever, but Modoc? Ha! No. No. I'm very happy with what we did. Previously, Stoll himself defended his character's journey, saying that the radical changes work in the context of Darren's arc. Well, what does he know? He says Jeff Loveness, who wrote the script, and Peyton and Paul made a very strong choice. I'd say it's a really strong choice. Like, really strongly recommend that you don't do that again. But he says a very strong choice to retcon. Is that the word? Yeah, I'd say that's the word. He says this new reason for Modoc to be. I think it really works. It certainly works in the context of Darren's arc. Yeah, it works in the context of Darren's arc if you're a terrible writer. Nobody was asking for a Darren Cross arc to be completed. I don't even know if people were asking for Modoc, but I guarantee you if they knew way beforehand that Modoc was going to do this in the movie, they'd probably say, no, you need to course correct. You need to fix Modoc. It goes on and says Loveness did mention the recent Avengers video game as an example of another take on the character, which I found hilarious. He's like, if you want a serious Modoc take, play the Avengers video game on PS5. Go ahead, go do that, because as long as I'm alive, you're getting nothing. Now, if you've played the Avengers game, which is a crap game, the story itself for Modoc is actually pretty good. They do a really good job of making him a serious character, a tragic character who becomes who he is through a bunch of failed experimentation. It's a really great arc. I actually think that the Modoc arc in Avengers video game is done really well, despite the fact, okay, I will be fair and say that, because the rest of the game is garbage, and one day they're going to stop taking care of that game. You won't even be able to play it after some time. But he's giving fans an ultimatum. He's saying, either play the Avengers game, which is the only time you'll ever get a serious Modoc, or watch my movies, where I make a complete joke out of the characters that you know and love, that you've been reading about, that you've understood for the last few decades. He says that he's going to just do whatever he wants, and there is nothing that fans can do about it. I believe down here he speaks about when he was actually watching the movie in films with other people, because these bad reviews, he said that they hit him really, really hard. Like, it really affected him. What's unique here is you don't see the material until you're almost arriving for your rehearsals, and this is the Marvel system, or the Marvel way. So you're a little at loose ends, he began. Everything's a little easier after the first one because I'd never done a green screen movie before, and now you have a little idea of what's going to happen. That's not really the best thing to say. But I do know that with him going around saying, it's like, well, ever since I saw a few people laughing at my movie in the theater I went to see the movie, I feel better about it, because this is the type of person that Jeff Loveness is. He thinks that his writing is amazing. until people see it. And then he goes and gets really, really upset and goes and isolates himself. But then he'll come out later and be like, no, the audiences were wrong. MODOK is great. I mean, it literally, I can't remember where I saw it, but he literally says that. He's like, MODOK is great. The fans are wrong. People actually like this. It's like, he's not even confident in his own writing material. This is the guy, once again, I know I keep stressing this, but it's really important for fans to understand that this is the guy that Marvel hired to write the next Avengers film, okay? And if you compare him to the Russo brothers, okay, who are just untouchable writers and directors, okay? They changed Marvel forever. They changed the MCU. They did incredible things with their movies. Captain America 3, Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame. And I get that those films had their problems, but those films were also really excellent. They really were, despite the little flaws, despite the woke intersectional political insertion, okay? Those films were really great. But when you compare this guy, okay, to directors like the Russos and directors like Joss Whedon, this guy does not stand a chance. And in another way, he's really just the testament and just like almost like the poster child of today's Marvel writers or today's TV writers in general. I mean, they'll write a completely crap movie and they get a bunch of negative feedback from it, but then they'll say, well, the fans are wrong. I know that my content is great. I'm proud of what I did. Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Jeff Loveness. Does the Rotten Tomatoes score, does that change your mind? Okay, all right, that doesn't change your mind. All right, Jeff Loveness. Well, what about the sales drop from the box office? The 69% drop off from the second week of this movie's showing, which is the biggest drop in Marvel's film history. No, that doesn't change. That doesn't make you think, okay, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I wrote him like crap and should probably do a better job in the future. No, that doesn't do it. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then what is there to talk about? What is there to say? I mean, this guy's going to be the writer. I think that Marvel's making a huge mistake. The films are already on a downhill slope. I mean, Kang's performance in Quantumania was okay at best, but he expects to take on one of the greatest Marvel villains, I think, in comic books. Okay, Kang isn't just some time-traveling clone guy. Okay, he's not. He's a very complex character. He wrestles with a number of different philosophies and character struggles. He's constantly at war with himself. What it is to be Kang, what it means for him to be Kang, and why he does the things he does, why he keeps repeating history, and why he keeps doing the same thing, and how he can't get a grasp on what time is, and why he can't defeat time. He can't defeat it. He can't defeat himself. He can't change his own historical course throughout time. He's a very complex character. A complex character who sometimes tries to redo his own past and change who he is so that he can feel normal again. I mean, this guy goes through absolute hell, and this is besides the fact that he attacks and kills the Avengers in different timelines. He's not an easy character to tackle. But then you've got a person like Jeff Loveness who can't even see past his own nose, who isn't confident in his own writing ability unless he gets words of affirmation from audiences. This is the guy who Marvel has entrusted to take their horrifically launched Phase 5 and then bring it into the stars. They want him to lead Marvel to success? Yeah, I don't see that happening, but I do hope that you all enjoyed this video. Please like and share it. Subscribe if you enjoyed this content. If you want to see anything in the future, click that notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Say goodbye, Plato. Meow, meow.